Hi, 7th graders, welcome back. We're going to continue 6.4 today, infectious disease and your health. We're going to be looking at how to prevent and treat infectious diseases. We'll talk about what's passive immunity. We'll learn how bacterial diseases are treated and some issues with that. And we'll talk about how antibiotic resistance can threaten public health. So let's do a little bit of review first. Which of the following is a first-line defense against pathogens? A, antibiotics, B, antibodies, C, skin, or D, vaccines? Well, let's talk about A first. Antibiotics are something you take after you're already sick, so those are not a first-line defense. Antibodies are part of the immune response, right? That happens after the pathogen has already entered your body, so that's a third-line defense, not a first-line defense. So skin or vaccines? Well, both are things that like a vaccine is something that you take early on to prevent disease, right? And a skin also prevents disease by stopping the pathogen from ever entering. But remember that a vaccine only works once the pathogen has already entered your body. So it's not a vaccine, it's skin, right? Skin and other barriers make up your first line defense against pathogens. So I talked a little bit about passive immunity last time, but let's make sure that we understand it, okay? So this is when antibodies are given to a person from one individual to another, rather than you making your own antibodies. This lasts a short time, sometimes a little bit longer, and one example is during pregnancy, antibodies are passed from mother to baby. It can also happen from the mother's milk. So bacterial diseases are treated using antibiotics. Let's break that word down. Anti meaning against, bio meaning life, right? So they are literally just killing living things. But they don't hurt us, okay? So they can kill the bacteria, slow their growth, but they don't harm us. And that's because they target things on the bacteria that our cells don't have. Okay, so for example, amoxicillin breaks the cell walls of certain bacteria. Now remember, our cells don't have cell walls. So if we create a medicine to attack cell walls, it won't attack our cells. However, there are some issues with antibiotics. One is that, they don't always differentiate between different types of bacteria. So they might actually attack the good bacteria in your body too. And the one that we're going to talk a little more in depth on today is antibiotic resistance caused by using antibiotics too much or in inappropriate ways. So first, let's learn how antibiotics actually work. So I already talked about the cell wall, right? But they can also attack other parts of the bacteria. They can attack bacterial DNA, which is very different from our DNA. They can attack the cell membrane or the metabolism or the ribosomes, which build the proteins, right? And if any of these things are stopped from working, the bacteria will die. So what about antibiotic resistance? Well, it does actually occur naturally, right? Because bacteria, just like other living things, have variety. There are different types of bacteria, and even in the same species, in same strain, you can get slightly different genetic variations from one bacteria to another, just like there are genetic variations from one person to another. So most of that bacteria in an infection will probably be just normal bacteria, and when you use an antibiotic, they'll die. However, some of the bacteria may be resistant, meaning they cannot be killed by antibiotics due to some genetic mutation. Perhaps the mutation causes them to have another layer outside of their cell wall. This protects them against the antibiotic. Or maybe it's something else. But whatever it is, it causes them to be resistant. So when you take the antibiotics, most of the normal bacteria die. However, the resistant bacteria will continue to multiply and become more common until eventually the entire infection evolves into a resistant strain, and that antibiotic no longer works for your infection. This doesn't happen every time somebody gets sick, obviously. Antibiotics work most of the time. But it does happen sometimes, and it's happening more often. And so it's something to be concerned about. And the really scary thing is it's not just random. Bacteria can also pass resistance to each other through a process called conjugation, where they connect to each other and pass DNA back and forth, or through transduction, where a bacteriophage, a virus that specifically attacks bacteria, can pick up DNA from one bacteria, resistance DNA, and give it to another bacteria. And then if that bacteria takes it up and integrates the DNA, it will become resistant. And this has become an increasing problem in the last century. Not just with vancomycin as shown in this graph, but with all antibiotics. Penicillin doesn't work for many infections now. There are many really dangerous infections that are resistant to methicillin and other antibiotics. In fact, some are pan-resistant, meaning they're resistant to all antibiotics. And remember, this is the bacteria that are resistant, not your body. So it depends on what type of bacteria are infecting you. So I've got a few questions for you to think about, and we'll talk a little bit more about this next time when we do a bit of review. But why can't viral diseases be cured using antibiotics? Antibio. Remember how antibiotics work and what they target. And I want you to think about why a viral disease can't be cured using antibiotic. Also, how can antibiotic abuse, so using antibiotics when you don't need them or overusing them, cause severe public health problems? Next time, we're going to finish learning about preventing infectious disease, and we're going to do a little bit of review. Make sure tonight that you complete all your assigned work and you check your notes and review as needed. That's it for today.